Welcome to the Africa in Harlem video podcast live from the village of Harlem. I'm Issa. Today's guest is Sister Tuesday Brooks. She is a financial manager and the CEO of A Joy Management, right?
Yes.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you, Sister Tuesday, for being with us. She's here to tell you everything that you need to know about the U.S. government's assistance program for small businesses affected by the coronavirus. Welcome, Sister Tuesday.
Thank you. I don't know if we're going to cover everything you need to know, but but we'll discuss some key points to be mindful of as you go through the process.
So you've been working with Black businesses for quite some time now. So how different are they from the rest?
Yeah. So we primarily focus on supporting women-owned businesses, and that is across all colors and and cultures of the spectrum. However, if you're asking how do our businesses of color differ from others, I would say there's not a significant difference in terms of their passion for what they do, their capability, their willingness to learn, and set things up properly. But I think what happens is uh, the there's some kind of difference in the implementation and the consistency. And that's what I see, as a financial manager and working with business owners in their books. And this is a generalization, but we tend not to have the consistency in order to see growth. And we find out the information, but we're slow to implement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about something as basic as a bookkeeping system, you know. That's what I'm seeing, but again, it's a generalization.
So why do you think this is happening?
I don't know. It could be any number of things. We, tend to have other things going on in our life that becomes distractions, I'd say. We tend to, I guess, be prideful and don't want others to look at what we have going on. We are certainly a lot of times undercapitalized, so we can't do all of the things that we need to do in a really efficient way, And then perhaps a lot of us have a mentality of trying to find things at no cost or low cost when there's really a cost to doing business. And if you want to see business growth, you have to wrap your brain around the fact that you have to pay for certain things, and certain things cost, but it means the difference in your business, being set up properly, thriving, and ultimately growing. You have to spend money really to see your business grow.
So maybe because the fact that it is so difficult for Black businesses to get finance, we always try to,
Right. No, it goes hand in hand. Right. And this is not a fault. And that's what I said. We tend to be undercapitalized, or we're starting businesses. We're rushing into it before we've had time to actually save, and build it correctly. You have to realize that just because you're passionate about something and you know that it could be a viable business doesn't mean you're supposed to jump right in without having a plan, right? You can think about a business that you're passionate about and start to develop it over time while saving, getting money together that you're going to use to launch. You can apply for lines of credit so you have some capital available to you as you need to do certain things, to grow the business. So we jump right in without first having the plan, right? So at a certain point, being undercapitalized is not really a good excuse, because we could take the time to do that. We can take time to get our credit right. We can take time to save. We can calculate with our startup funds are going to be what we need for startup. We can save for that or get investments, or you can do, crowdfunding things. So there's certain things you can still have in place before starting your business that will give you, that will sort of level the playing field. And a lot of times we don't do that. We just jump right in because we're excited.
Maybe this is a topic for another video, and we'll discuss some of the things that you need to put in place before starting a business. So let's get
Right.
into it. So we've seen that this bill was signed last week, and a lot of small businesses can't wait to receive these grants and loans. Can you talk to us about what is available?
You said can wait or can't wait?
Can't wait.
They can't wait, right? Yeah, no, there's an urgency for everybody, right? There's definitely an urgency for everybody. And there are two basic initiatives that are happening right now that everyone is talking about. So while you're getting information for several different places, they are literally talking about the same thing, right? And that is the SBA having a disaster loan, it's economic injury disaster loan, and then they also have the PPP program, which is also a loan, but it differs because if you spend it on the correct things, like maintaining your payroll, maintaining your staff and rent, core things, then it could be forgiven. So that's what's there now. Two loans, one can be forgiven, one is not, but is at a lower, a low interest rate. And you have the opportunity to apply for both. Now, in that, with the disaster loan, you can actually get a $10,000 advance if you apply for the disaster loan. And so that is quicker cash. It's supposed to be quicker cash. So once you submit your application successfully for the disaster loan, the EIDL loan, you can then apply for the cash advance, and you're supposed to get that in a matter of days. I have not heard of anyone getting it in a matter of days yet.
It might be more complicated too.
Right. So, but that's the premise. We're going to give you $10,000 to hold you over until we can process your loan. Mm-hmm. And that $10,000 can ultimately be forgiven too, depending on, if you apply for the PPP. So those are the two core things. Now in New York City had some.
PPP. It sounds. You say PPP. It sounds.
That's the paycheck protection. Yeah, the Paycheck Protection Program, and that is literally to protect your team members. Those that you employ. And now in this case, it's the broader definition of employment for those of us who are self-employed and independent contractors. Okay, you can apply for it as well, because as a business owner, you are effectively employing yourself, right? What I was going to mention about New York City had two other initiatives too. One of which is ending, the last day to apply is Saturday, what's today's date? April
4th.
And that's the employee retention grant. And it's the same thing. You get a grant that you don't have to pay back, but it's for the purpose of preserving your team members that are on payroll. And then the New York City also has a zero interest loan, a continuity loan that one can apply for. And as far as I know, that is still open and you can apply for it.
Okay.
As far as I know, but things are changing from day to day.
Okay. So from what I understand, you saying that this SBA has two programs. One is the Paycheck Protection Program, which allows you to keep your employees during this crisis.
Then for at least the 8-week period. Mm-hmm.
So then you have the emergency, the disaster loan, right?
Yes.
The disaster loan, and it's the one where they can give you 10,000 while they processing your loan application, right?
Yes.
Then you have another program with New York City, which is a grant. A grant is money given to you that you don't have to pay back, right? So,
Correct.
and the same idea is to allow you to keep your employees. And then you have also a loan from the city that allows you to get money, but you will have to pay back, right? So, and I also see that you also have offers coming from nonprofit organizations, coming from corporations. And it's hard for me to believe that these corporations are doing anything for free. So, how do you have all these propositions, you need money. How do you make a choice?
Right. So my initial answer is don't make a choice. You apply for everything that you think you qualify for, right? You look at the criteria and you should absolutely apply for it, right? Having said that, understand you first want to start looking at what the interest rate is if it's a loan. So if there's an opportunity for zero interest loan, which is basically cash, going to help you with your cash flow and won't cost you anything, of course you want to apply for that first. That would be a priority, zero interest loan. And then you look at the other opportunities that have smaller interest rates. And in this case, all of the programs that are coming out now, the interest rate is smaller. Nonprofits with the SBA program, nonprofits would pay 2.75%. For the regular small business is 3.75%. And then for the PPP, whatever portion of the money that you borrowed that's not forgiven, then it's a 1% interest and not to exceed 5%. So initially, it was a 0.5% to 4%, but like I said, things are constantly changing. So now it looks like it's 1% on the part that's unforgiven. So the thing you want to look at is, okay, what's a grant that I don't have to pay back? I'm going to go for that first. And then what's a product that will be zero interest or low interest? And you do it incrementally. And, and I heard of some of the other programs that you're talking about, but right now what I can see, you're just submitting your information and not really getting any, type of
Just gathering
feedback.
data. I think they're gathering data, and after the crisis,
Right.
they're going to use all that data. And they're in business
Yeah.
to do business. They're not
Yeah.
in business to give away.
Yeah.
So I think people have to pay attention. I know that for the city program, it's zero.
It's zero interest. Yeah, zero interest. So you understand that you have to pay it back. They expect you to pay it back, but it's not costing you anything. So the exact amount that you borrowed is the amount that you're going to pay back.
Does it mean that it will be more difficult or easier to get those loans?
No, there's still, well, every entity has their own process, right? So they're still going to bring you through the process of asking for documentation, right? So you still may have to, not may, you have to provide financial statements, you have to provide payroll reports, they may ask you for bank statements. So there's a series of documents that they ask, and for each one it's different. They're using a different screening process, but you have to have paperwork to support your need.
Some of our African entrepreneurs, African businesses out here, we tend to do business the informal way, the way we do it back home. And now that there is an emergency, and you see all these opportunities for grants and loans, you want to apply, but you don't have your paperwork in order. So what should they do?
Yeah, I don't know that I have the answer to that because you sort of
They
can't.
won't get anything.
Right. Yeah, you can't have it both ways, right? If you're a business owner and you're sort of flying under the radar, doing it very informally, and may or may not even be paying taxes on the money that you're earning, you can't then have the expectation to be supported in the case of an emergency such as this, right? Having said that, though, you don't have to have a formal business to the extent that you're an LLC or S corp or C corp or something like that. You can be an independent contractor. You know, you could be working as a freelancer or independent contractor and still qualify to apply. So the difference is going to become whether or not you have paperwork. So it's one thing to have your business informal, meaning you didn't, get legal corporate documents, but it's another thing to be so informal where you're absolutely keeping no paperwork. So that's a different type of informal,
Situation.
right? So you can still apply, but if you don't have the paperwork, then that's what's going to present a barrier.
What are some of the documents that they would usually want to see?
Yeah, so the general documents have been first, you're completing the application. If it's for the federal grants, you're filling out the form to give them the right to pull your past tax returns that you have on file. You're signing authorization for them to pull and look at that. They are asking you for prior tax returns. They're asking you for payroll reports. And when I say payroll reports, that means if you're paying employees, so you're using one of the softwares like QuickBooks Online Payroll or Gusto or ADP or Paychecks, one of the formal payroll processing software. So they're going to ask you for reports from that. And then your financial statements, they want to see a profit and loss from 2019. They want to see a year to date for 2020, because essentially you're saying, I've been impacted by this and I want to be able to show you the numbers. I want to show you that now my revenue has decreased and I could do a comparison. And that's the thing. If you're using like QuickBooks Online and keeping up with your bookkeeping, you can literally press a button that shows the comparison on the report. That's what we used. I applied to the city, for a grant, and I've already received it because, as a financial manager and accountant.
Can I get a cut?
Right. I got to pay my employees first.
Laugh, you mail me a check, please.
Yeah, I was able to run reports and show the difference between 2019 and 2020 for this period, January through March.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm always on my soapbox trying to impress the importance of sound bookkeeping for our businesses, our small businesses.
But sometimes you might think it's something extra until you need the paperwork.
It is the core. It's one of the first things you should set up when going into business. It's absolutely not extra, because if you intend to even grow the business, there's going to come to a point where you may need capital from a bank or a CDFI, and you're still going to have to submit financial statements, right? So even outside of a crisis, having bookkeeping is a core part of you operating an efficient business. It is not extra. It's not even optional. When you file tax returns and all of the data that you put on the tax return should box with your financial statements. There may be discrepancies in terms of what the federal government or your state will allow you to write off. So there are book to tax differences, but generally all the information that's on your financial statement is what you're putting on your tax return. And it should be very consistent.
You said to apply to everything. And then can things go bad, and how?
Okay, and I said, apply for everything that you think you would qualify for. You're going to read the criteria and see if you qualify for it and apply for it. So I'm going to qualify that statement. Nothing is worse than what we're going through right now. I cannot imagine how anything could go worse than what's happening. So my answer to that question is no. things can only get better. Some of the programs will be open until June in terms of applying. However, it has to do with when the money runs out, when the funds run out. So you really don't have that cushion of a month or two to apply for something, right? You got to do it as quickly as possible. So if you can in any way, take the information from your bank account, hopefully you've maintained a business bank account. That's the other thing, you should be doing. The moment you're in business, you should have a separate bank account to run all your income and expenses through. So if you can somehow take that data, create a financial statement to support what you've paid. You can include paying independent contractors in the PPP. So if you can demonstrate that you issue 1099s or you made payments to certain independent contractors to help you operate your business, you can include that. So there's a way to pull it together, but you have to act quickly.
You give a lot of useful information. You spoke about the two programs from the states, the two programs from the city. I think the grant, the
federal, mm-hmm,
federal and local. I think for the grant, the deadline I believe was yesterday at 5, and the loan program is still open. But again, you have to have your paperwork in order. You also spoke about the importance of bookkeeping and planning first, right?
Planning.
I'm so excited that you just have a great idea and you can't wait and you just start running, right? So just plan a little bit before you jump into it. Then once you plan right, get a bookkeeper, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Get a bookkeeper, but also open a business account
Bank account.
separate
Yes.
from your personal bank account. What are some of the other things that entrepreneurs should do or should know?
Well, okay, right. So you're going to have your separate bank account. You can formalize your business. If you've been operating as an independent contractor, you can simply get a certificate, a doing business as certificate, right, to make your business more formal. And that's typically $100 plus $20 for 2 copies. And you can get a tax ID number, so you're not using your social security number. And so you take those two, the DBA certificate, your tax ID number, and you go to the bank and you set up your business bank account. Now you are, oh, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we're losing our time. So then now, it's more formal. And I would say, if you have people working for your business, do not pay them, off the books. Legitimize that expense. Issue them 1099s, at the beginning of the subsequent year, so that it shows that they were an independent contractor to your business. If there are guidelines around what's an employee and what's an independent contractor. Understand that and hire people as actually employees if they're working as an employee for your business. I would just say, really try to legitimize it. So God forbid something like this happens again, you do have some paperwork. There are applications, there are inexpensive apps that you can use to create, financial reports. So I would say, use an app that will capture your income and your expenses if you're not ready to subscribe to actual bookkeeping software. That's the time. And you can even use Excel, to be quite honest. If you're savvy with using Excel, you can actually, create financial statements from entering your data into Excel. And you can import from the bank account, the data from your bank account. So there are workarounds that are not that expensive, but it's just important to implement it and be consistent with keeping it up to date.
The thing with paying people under the table is sometimes people don't necessarily follow the labor laws. And if you're not paying someone minimum wage, you wouldn't want people to know about it.
Yeah, which is not good. Just generally, it's just not good. It's not good. It's not legal. So, we really can't give any advice around, how to work that out. 'Cause it's just not
Without compromising yourself.
right. It's just not, it's just not a thing for what we do. We're all about setting up businesses properly so that they can grow. And, you can continue with a side hustle, or lifestyle business, getting away with certain things, without formalizing it and perhaps, ride under the radar for a long time. But if you are intentional about growing your business and being able to sustain your family on it, you have to do things right, the right way.
The right way, so you can get the grants and the loans.
Mm-hmm.
A bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe before you go, you spoke about using apps. I mean, do you have maybe a few apps in mind for people who maybe want to start something? It's never too late, but
Yeah. It's well, they'll be able to use it for 2020. I know QuickBooks, has an app, a self-employed app. There's one called Waze or Wave or
yeah, Wave.
yeah. But I don't like the apps, even though it's better than nothing. So I don't have a particular favorite, and I do not have one that we work with, because when people provide us the data from them apps, it's not as useful as if they had full-on bookkeeping software, or actually in Excel. Excel is actually better than the apps from my experience in working with clients.
So
Yeah.
what are some of this bookkeeping software that you know?
So
That
so the primary two are QuickBooks Online and Xero, Xero, QuickBooks Online and Xero. There's another one called Accounting Suite that it's good, and my firm is certifying with. You have to go through the training and everything to be able to use it and then support other clients. But those are the core ones that I would say you should use at this point.
I will let you go finally, because you have
I
still it's still tax season for you, so you have clients that you have to help. And maybe if
yeah
you want to give your contact information, if people have questions or want to talk to you.
yeah we've been supporting clients in the whole application process for SBA. We're not doing the applications for them or for the city initiatives, but we are helping them with the documentation, compiling the documentation that they need. Less folks are doing taxes now. I don't know, that might have to do with them extending the deadline to July. But hopefully those who have not done it yet will eventually come and do it. And there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about. One of the nonprofit organizations that we are working with is called Good Counsel Services right now. And Good Counsel Services supports nonprofits and social impact, business owners and individuals with pro bono legal services. So generally, that's part of their core mission. But right now, we are offering micro loans, emergency loans to people in need, and they are zero interest.
Also,
So if there's anyone that needs cash quickly, you can get it in an increment of $500, $1,000, or $1,500. You submit a request, you say what it's for, and we turn it around like fairly quickly, 24 to 48 hours generally. And we were hoping to be the bridge between when more substantial stuff came, and that's happening. So for instance, people were getting this loan from us for food, right? But now the city has rolled out the grab and go at all of the local schools and, in New York City. So now that you can get food, you can use this money for household things. You need you need soap and deodorant and things
Pay rent.
to clean the house. So we're not doing rent because, everybody has to pay their rent, and they're working that out with the landlords in terms of, it being deferred or forgiven, for a period of time altogether. So it's not to pay rent. We are in New York City. Nobody's going to be evicted. The courts are closed. So no one should be concerned about being evicted. Your rent is still due until your landlord tells you it is not. But this money is better served, best used for those immediate things, just to sustain your household, keeping it clean and keeping everyone fed.
Okay.
And or keeping your staff. You may have a staff member that was working with you that you want to be able to hold on to and just give them a couple of, $100, per week or something to keep them working.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Contact. You didn't give your contact information.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. So the email is accountants@ajoymanagement.com. So there's accountants plural, right? At Ajoy, AJOY, management, the word spelled out, .com. Accountants@ajoymanagement.com. The website is ajoymanagement.com. The phone number is 646-535-2459. That's 646-535-2459. And if you want to follow us on social media, it's Ajoy World. It's at Ajoy Worldwide, at Ajoy, AJOY Worldwide. And that's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Hey, thank you so much for your time, Sister Tuesday.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Take good care and be safe.